seats. And welcome, Premier. Thank you. Yeah, that's perfect. I see so many familiar faces, but it's really hard to recognize you with these masks on. This is a tremendous day for Grande Prairie and the Peace Region. It's been a long time in coming, and so I'm very delighted to welcome fellow friends and dignitaries to this announcement that we are very excited as the Government of Alberta to make. And I will not take much time because we are have a lot of speakers, but I want to welcome, it's my deep pleasure to welcome my leader and the Premier of the province of Alberta, the best province in Canada in my opinion, the Right Honourable Jason Kenney, everybody.
Tracy, just one correction. I am merely honorable, not right honorable, and a lot of people would even debate that. So, but I will. I promise not to sing. So, while I'm speaking, will take off my mask. But I'm glad to see that you're all observing good practices up here in GP, and I am so excited to be here. For you know what? After the last 3.5 months, we need some good news, and today is a good news announcement. I am so excited to be here. Thank you, Tracy, for your presence and your hard work on this project, as well as your local colleague, Travis Tays, Minister of Finance. It's great to be joined by Minister of Infrastructure, Prasad Panda, Minister of Health, Tyler Shandro, with Chris Workington, MP, my former colleague with Mayor Bill Given, as well as Reeves, Leanne Beaupre, and Dale Smith from Grande Prairie and Greenview counties, and so many other community leaders, and most importantly, the volunteers. Todd Lohan, of course, our MLA Central Peace River Notley? Okay, almost got it right. And thank you again to the volunteers who support healthcare here in the Northwest, and most importantly, the people that worked on this incredibly big project. Today's announcement was nearly a decade in the making, and that is way too long for any infrastructure project. Do you agree, Prasad? I do. All right. So let me begin by thanking the citizens and public officials of the Grande Prairie region for your amazing patience. You have the patience of Job. And let me also thank you for your perseverance. Let me thank local leaders for having this vision of this hospital. And let me thank my colleagues, Tracy Allard and Travis Tays. Ever since our government took office about 14 months ago, from day one, they were all over this project, wanting to do everything possible, working with Ministers Panda and Shandro, their officials at Infrastructure and Health, to get the project finally done. And indeed, I think within a week of our taking office, Prasad, you and Tyler were up here with Tracy and Travis meeting with local officials to see what the remaining delays were and how we could move forward while also addressing issues around subcontractors. So it has been a long and patient path. But ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to be here today on behalf of the Government of Alberta to announce today the completion of construction of the Grande Prairie Regional Hospital. Mayor, you probably never thought you'd hear those words, right? On next Wednesday, July the 1st, Canada Day, the new hospital will be handed over officially from Alberta Infrastructure to Alberta Health Services to begin operational commissioning. It will take some time for a thorough cleaning of the facilities, the installation of equipment, training of staff in order to provide a safe and quality care. But when the doors open in a few months, I am pretty sure the people of northwestern Alberta will agree that it was all worth the wait. Because this is a state-of-the-art healthcare facility, truly the newest and most technologically advanced hospital in Alberta. At 680,000 square feet, 240 patient beds, and fully equipped for the full range of medical services and treatment, including surgery, cancer care, emergency services, and mental health services, services that our government is expanding. Plus, it will include a healthcare training facility in partnership with GP Regional College. This project has contributed a lot of jobs and financial benefit to this community and the surrounding areas. Under the leadership of Clark Builders, literally thousands of tradespeople, architects, and designers have invested tens of thousands of hours to complete this project. And we can talk about the 9-year project it took us to get here, but since Clark Builders took over the project, they finished this 3 months ahead of schedule. So we'll thank them for that. At the peak of construction, some 400 workers were here on site. And let me just pause to give a shout out to the hundreds of folks who put hours of labor into this project. Those are the real heroes here today. How about giving a big round of applause to all the construction workers? And let me also say thank you to the dozens or maybe hundreds of subcontractors who worked on this project over the years, who exercised tremendous patience. We know that there have been some real challenges for them. I think we've worked through almost all of them. There are probably some loose ends, and we know there are continue to be some challenges from the past 9 years. But generally, there were a lot of tremendous Alberta subcontractors who worked on this project, who got it done even during some really challenging times. In the decades ahead, this hospital will not only treat patients and save lives among a regional population that is projected to grow to 350,000 by 2025, it will also be a major contributor to the regional economy of Northwest Alberta. The hospital will directly employ an estimated 1,500 healthcare workers, which will be a net increase of 500 good jobs for the region. Plus, it will support thousands of indirect jobs at local businesses that provide goods and services to this hospital and its employees. A 2016 study, I'm told, done by the Grande Prairie Regional Economic Development Group, found that the hospital will generate over $400 million in economic output annually and contribute almost $300 million to Alberta's gross domestic product. And boy, we need that boost. This is great news for the Northwest. The region's been one of the real bright spots in Alberta's economy during the last few years, even as much of the rest of the province suffered through an economic stagnation that was mostly caused by bad policies that were hostile to our energy sector. But we were starting to turn things around at the end of last year, beginning of this year, and GP was leading the growth that was gathering momentum across Alberta until, of course, the pandemic struck, flattening the global economy, and with it, energy demand and prices, and we know the impact that's had on the people of Alberta. But now that we're all facing a tough comeback from what is likely to be the worst recession in at least a generation, and likely since the 1930s, but Alberta's government has been completely focused on protecting the lives and livelihoods of Albertans over the past 3 months, and that will remain our driving purpose as we continue reopening our economy. People up here in the Northwest, like all Albertans, have done a great job following the public health guidance and keeping the spread of COVID under control. And let me pause to tell something you may not have heard, because this is good news, so generally isn't reported by the media, but Alberta had the lightest public health restrictions of any Canadian province, and amongst the lightest public health restrictions of any jurisdiction in the Western world. 85% of businesses were allowed to continue operating at the height of the pandemic, representing 96% of our economy and 88% of our workforce, not to minimize for a second the huge sacrifice and adversity felt by so many in the depths of this crisis. But it is to say that Alberta's government chose the path of personal responsibility and common sense rather than the widespread lockdowns that we saw throughout the developed world. And the results have justified that wager that we placed on the culture of personal responsibility of Albertans. I say that because even though we had less stringent public health orders, we have had one of the best public health outcomes in the developed world, with the exception of a couple of weeks, the lowest levels, per capita levels of infection, hospitalizations, ICU admissions, and deaths amongst the large Canadian provinces, almost all of the U.S. states, and almost all of Europe. And that is a testament to the personal responsibility and social care that is hardwired into the culture of this province. And has also set us up, even notwithstanding the oil price crash, we've seen less of a contraction in many of our sectors of our economy than other Canadian provinces. So it's set us up strongly for the coming economic relaunch. And in that, I can tell you that on Monday, your MLA Travis and I will be in Calgary to launch Alberta's economic recovery strategy. It will be a bold and ambitious plan to make strategic investments to get people working right now when we need it most, but also to invest in the long-term productivity of our economy through the largest ever investments in public infrastructure, including in healthcare, in roads. Travis, you're going to get Highway 40 done, right? That's right. And in emphasizing Alberta as the best place in North America in which to invest, with a huge focus on critical growth sectors to diversify our economy while ensuring the future for our energy sector. So all of that bodes well. Now, projects like this are an important part of it. So I am confident that Grande Prairie and the Northwest are going to pick up where you left off before COVID and play a leading role in Alberta's amazing growth and recovery story. I'll just conclude by promising one more thing. One of the biggest features of our recovery strategy, as I've said, is that we're not going to let any major infrastructure project, public or private, drag on like this one did. Right, Prasad? All right. We are going through Alberta's overgrown forest of job-killing red tape and regulation with a buzzsaw. And we're going to get our economy moving at the speed of business, not of bureaucracy. The phrase free market has always resonated loudest in Alberta, but in recent years it hasn't been nearly free enough. And that is going to change. So thanks again to everyone who worked so hard for so long to get us to today's announcement and to next Wednesday's formal transfer. Thank you to those who are going to do the important work of commissioning this hospital, to the medical professionals who will work in it to help save lives and to build a strong community here in this great city of Grande Prairie, Alberta. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Premier. It's my pleasure now to introduce a couple of ministers, but I realized that I forgot my first instruction. I'm supposed to tell you that the washrooms are just around the corner at the back of this hallway, and that in the unlikely event of an emergency, you are to exit through any marked exit door. The closest one is right behind us, and there's one over here. Also, in the unlikely event of depressurization, please put your mask on before assisting others. So that being said, it's my pleasure to welcome two colleagues to the stage, Minister Prasad Panda, the Minister of Infrastructure, and the Honourable Tyler Shandro, Minister of Health. Welcome, Ministers.
Thank you, Tracy. Good afternoon, everyone. Premier has already acknowledged his worship, the Mayor and the local MP and all my honourable colleagues. But first of all, I would like to thank all of you for joining us today on this very special day for Grande Prairie and the Northwest area. This is indeed an exciting day. In fact, when Premier appointed me as the minister, the next day he told me, there are so many projects, but focus on Grande Prairie Hospital, just go there, clean it up, get it done. And that's why today it's really a very exciting day. So when I came and visited and I debriefed my colleagues at infrastructure, one thing I told them is health and education and justice, seniors, all these departments are our customers, and we should focus on customer service and get it done for them. So I would like to thank all of my colleagues at Alberta Infrastructure for all the hard work they put in to get this beautiful state-of-the-art hospital done as soon as possible. There were always lessons learned, and we are going to take that into account in planning and designing and constructing future projects. But today is the day to celebrate. So our focus from now onwards at infrastructure is on making the final adjustments for this hospital to make everything just right, and to work with our partners at AHS in the next couple of days with commissioning activities. Building modern, efficient public infrastructure like this much anticipated hospital is vital to support the well-being and continued growth for the residents in Grande Prairie and area and throughout the province. These projects create good-paying jobs, attracts investment into our communities, and are an integral part of Alberta's economic recovery. Our government sees infrastructure projects in healthcare, schools, roads, and many other areas as an investment in the long-term future of Albertans that increases their quality of life and creates opportunities. We are in this together, and together we can rebuild this province to be the best place to live, work, start a business, and raise a family. I would like to take a moment to recognize the work and efforts of Clark Builders, who set the direction to get this project completed as quickly and efficiently as possible. And they accomplished that when they finished 3 months ahead of their original construction schedule. Two of the significant factors in achieving that goal was the 400 trade and construction workers who were on the work site daily last summer, as Premier noted, and over 85% of the subcontractors who returned to the project to complete their work. They preserved through cold snaps and COVID-19 pandemic to keep to the schedule and get the project completed as quickly and as efficiently as possible. I would also like to thank the contractors, tradespeople, architects, and designers who invested thousands of hours to this project, and all the volunteers that participated from civil society. Thank you for all the time you spent. In a couple of minutes, when we start the tour, you will get to see some of the innovative features that were incorporated into the design and construction of Alberta's newest hospital. And I would just like to point out that there is a lot of construction still underway in Grande Prairie. This morning, I toured with my colleague, Minister Taves, Grande Prairie Composite High School, which the mayor talked to me a few months ago. And today we were happy to report that this $80 million project is well under construction, which will serve 1,600 students when it is completed in a year. And there are 3 other school projects that will begin construction in short order. And every time I can't be here, so that's why I asked my colleagues, Tracy and Todd Lowen, to supervise construction of these projects. And I do debrief with them regularly. And earlier this week, we started an initiative that invites everyone to participate in an online survey that will help us develop our infrastructure strategy for long term. That's in fact one of our campaign commitments. Our Premier wanted us to bring in Infrastructure Act, which will legislate prioritizing criteria for project selection and funding. And along with that, we will also bring in 20-year strategic capital plan, which will be used as a long-term planning for our capital planning and also budgeting process. So I encourage all of you to visit alberta.ca and provide your suggestions on our long-term infrastructure goals. Your participation will help us in planning for key public infrastructure projects such as health facilities, schools, secondary education, roads and bridges, and irrigation projects, broadband projects, energy infrastructure projects, name anything, so we are open. And infrastructure is a critical part of Alberta's recovery plan, as Premier noted. So now more than ever, we need to ensure we have the strategic planning in place to guide our infrastructure investments. Again, you can make your opinion count by going to alberta.ca. The survey is open until early August. And now I'm happy to pass the baton to my esteemed colleague, the Honorable Minister of Health, Tyler Shandro.
Thank you, Minister. Well, what an exciting day to be in the great city of Grande Prairie. And I know how long this journey has been to see a new hospital built to take care of your children, your families, and your friends. The project itself has had challenges on top of everything else that's been going on the last few months. We've seen a lot of change in our plans, and as we try to reduce the spread of COVID-19 throughout our province. The good news is, when we look at COVID and the spread of it throughout the province, the active cases of COVID-19 and hospital admissions continue to be low and stable. Restaurants, businesses, and parks are reopening, and Albertans continue to do their part to keep each other safe. And for everybody here in Grande Prairie, the finish line is in sight. We can see our way to the completion of the hospital as we turn the facility over to Alberta Health Services and get ready for patients and ready for staff. And as Premier Kenney and Minister Panda have mentioned, over the coming months, AHS will make sure that everything is working as it should be inside the new hospital. They'll ensure that the staff are trained and all of the equipment is installed, it's tested, that it's ready to go. The new Grande Prairie Hospital will be a modern, technologically advanced facility with a state-of-the-art cancer center and about 240 beds. Now, this will be the first time that people in Northern Alberta will have access to radiation therapy without having to travel to Edmonton. And for those who need it, there will be a new 28-bed mental health unit as well. And there will be dedicated teaching space, as Premier mentioned, to train nurses and other healthcare professionals who can learn and train here on site. The building and the equipment will be new, but the heart of the hospital will be the same. The physicians and the staff who work here will provide the same skilled and compassionate care that they've always provided to the folks in Grande Prairie. And the new hospital has been a long time coming, and I need you to be patient just a little bit longer. We need to make sure that the new Grande Prairie Hospital is ready before we open the doors to patients. But that day is coming, as Premier said, and as Minister Panda said. And I'm looking forward to coming back here to celebrate with you very shortly. And thank you to all of the health professionals in Grande Prairie for helping us with the hospital project and for the care that you provide patients in this region each and every day. So my best to all of the patients and their families in the existing hospital and all of their loved ones. Thank you to everyone in Grande Prairie and across the province for your continued vigilance in keeping yourselves, keeping your families, keeping your friends safe from COVID-19. Also, keeping our healthcare professionals safe, which is sometimes lost. The reason we need to take the orders and the guidance of the Chief Medical Officer of Health seriously is not just keep us and our families safe, but folks, we have our paramedics over there. We need to keep them safe as well, right? And so thank you. Can you imagine throughout COVID-19 having to, every time you take a call, you're putting yourself at risk. So thank you for everything you guys have done. So, folks, remember that we're in this together, as Dr. Hinshaw keeps on saying, keeping Alberta strong, keeping Alberta healthy. Thank you so much. And I'd like now to ask Stacey to come up and say a few words on behalf of Alberta Health Services as well. So, Stacey, you mind coming up?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here on behalf of Alberta Health Services. As I begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 8 territory, home to many diverse First Nations and Métis people who have walked this land since time immemorial. We are very excited to see construction completed. I would like to thank Alberta Infrastructure, Dialogue Design, Clark Builders, Graham Construction, and all the contractors involved for their very hard work. While construction is wrapping up, the hard work is just beginning. As AHS takes possession, we now enter our operational commissioning. As you've heard, much of this work will include building systems, our medical equipment, etc. This work will look different for us with COVID-19 pandemic. So we ask for your patience as we navigate through the relaunch and ensure staff and patient safety as our #1 priority. The commissioning process will also include the implementation of our new Connect Care provincial health information system. This system will allow healthcare providers and patients easy access to health information. It will benefit our patients and healthcare teams in numerous ways to have the new hospital Connect Care capable right from the start. We hope to have all this commissioning work completed and be ready to welcome our first patient by mid-2021. Throughout this project, we've used community feedback and suggestions to create a space that will bring comfort. Examples of this include a photo campaign that has seen 60 images bringing the beauty of the Peace region into the facility. We have local plants in all of our courtyards, and we have sufficient parking. We have about 1,300 stalls, surface and parkade. As we get closer to opening, additional staff will be needed throughout the facility. We look forward to recruiting new healthcare talent to the region, as well as welcoming our current staff into roles within this facility. This milestone today also allows us to continue to vision and plan for services that will be provided out of the existing QE2 hospital building. The exact scope of those services will be communicated shortly. On behalf of all our staff, physicians, and volunteers, we look forward to caring for our patients and our community in our new facility in the very near future. Thank you.
So thank you very much, everyone, for being here today. I believe we're going to take a few short media questions. Hayden, is that correct?
That's right. If any local media has questions, there's a microphone at the back there.
Excellent. So we'll have Hayden is going to moderate for the media for questions for Premier and the ministers. I just wanted to recognize Minister Taves and MLA Todd Lowen again. Todd is technically not a Grande Prairie MLA anymore, but we love when he comes to visit us, and he's always willing to lend us a hand. So I really appreciate you coming out today, Todd, and certainly has been a champion for this project. I also wanted to say that there are tours scheduled to depart immediately after the media questions. And Trevor, there's Trevor, he's going to wave his hand for you. You should have a number on your name badge, but if you're unsure which tour you're on, please go see Trevor at the back and he'll make sure you're on the right tour. So with no further ado, Hayden, you can take it away with the media.
All right. Anyone want to line up for a question?
Sure, I'll go here. Excellent. So you mentioned that there's going to be bringing in staff and some new jobs. Do we know how many new jobs and sort of what fields are being created here?
Well, actually, I might have to defer to Stacey for that question. So how many more staff that are going to be included in this site as opposed to what is already at the QE2 hospital? Stacey, do you mind telling me?
So we will have several new 100 jobs on site, and it's across absolutely every single area within the facility. The vast majority of those are going to be allocated to our new cancer center, so that's new services, so that area will all be new staff. We're currently working with our recruitment committees and working on rotations for all of the areas within the facility, and so that'll dictate in terms of complement of staffing across there, but it will be in the hundreds of jobs.
So it's well known that there was a bunch of problems with the previous contractors working on this facility. What were some of the major differences towards completion with the new contractor?
So we are still reviewing what worked well, what didn't work well, but when the new contractor, Clark Builder, came in, so the majority of the work exterior was done, but the interior work behind the walls, there are a lot of instrumentation, piping, plumbing and other stuff. They found some deficiencies, so that took a bit of time. But going forward, Alberta Infrastructure will take the lessons learned from this project, and we are incorporating procedures to enhance our work process. So going forward, our focus would be to complete the projects on budget, on time, and build it to the specifications. So we are improving our tools to track the progress on budget and on schedule. And then we are also training our staff to proactively identify the risks and mitigate them as we move forward. So that will be the focus. Right, so that's the other thing we're trying to, so one of our campaign commitment is to limit cost plus contracts and limit sole source contracts. And more importantly, don't announce projects just for sake of announcements before elections, but actually do a thorough review of design and specifications and bid the project with the proper scope and get it priced, and then stop doing changes. That's one of the things I push back my colleagues at Health. So I said, whatever you need, tell us well ahead, so we don't have to monkey with the scoping, and which will add to the cost. So that's other focus we have going forward. We'll narrow down the scope and get firm pricing, and then we'll have a solid schedule, and we'll stick to that schedule.
So I think Minister Panda is selling himself short. So I think there was quite a bit that was learned, and that now he and his ministry are now implementing in other infrastructure projects that were, and AHS are working with his ministry, and how the processes are put in place are incredibly important, and that's the amazing work that he's doing to make sure that that future infrastructure projects don't have those types of problems. So.
And also we are revisiting our contracting documents, so we're trying to build the contracting general terms and conditions to allocate the risk to appropriate party, whether we share the risk with the contractor or who is the best partner to take that risk. So we're also tightening our contracting documents so we don't get into legal issues. Thank you.
Go ahead, Dave.
This is for both Minister Taves and Shandro. It's currently about 100 million over budget, 850 up from 760. Is that price including the commissioning work, and will that funding then be on the books for the province beyond 2021 into 2022?
No. The cost overrun was just with the construction, and then the commissioning work is coming out of AHS's budget. So it's all within the $12 billion grant that we provide to AHS. So that's and I don't at this time foresee any cost overruns with the commissioning that's required.
Sure. I have the unenviable task to manage the budget these days. What I would like to say, I think Minister Shandro answered the question well. What I would like to say is just a little more about Minister Panda's approach to this project and the approach that I see him take to infrastructure in general. I was so impressed, I think Tracy and I were both very impressed, when Minister Panda came up to tour the hospital almost very shortly after we were elected. And I watched Minister Panda sit down with senior infrastructure officials, with Clark Builders, and senior folks in design at Health. And he gave them very detailed and very intentional instructions on what his expectations were in terms of timeline, in terms of quality, and in terms of managing to a budget. So I will say this, that we have an infrastructure minister that is intent on delivering projects in this province on time and within budget, and I believe that will serve Albertans well.
So how does we have an engineer?
All right, should we head outside for the key?
So yeah, I think there's a key ceremony. Is that outside, Hayden?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so we will head outside. I wanted to thank everyone, and again, if you're not sure which tour you're on, go see Trevor. Thank you for being here today, and what a great time in our world to have some good news to share with people. In a time of COVID, this is awesome to have a good news story. Thank you, everyone.